This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to my podcast. The focus of my podcast is local and state issues here in Tennessee. You can follow me on Facebook on my Charles Cook Facebook page. So go to Facebook and like that page and share the information. My YouTube and Rumble channels are Charles Cook 52. So please subscribe to the channel and click the bell and be notified whenever I upload a new video. And you can also contact me at charlescookpodcast@gmail.com if you got an idea that you'd like to discuss, or maybe come on and talk about some local and state issues going on in your area. So today, my guest is my good friend, Tillman Goins. Tillman, got to know him many years ago, and we've become good friends and everything, and I think the world of him. So anyway, so Tillman is a former county commissioner from here in Hamilton County, where I'm from, and he was also our state representative at the state level for 6 years. Is that correct?
3 terms, 6 years. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And so got him on today. So welcome, Tillman. You got anything you want to say before we get started?
Thanks. No, but I do, of course, appreciate your friendship over the years, and I hope that your audience doesn't hold my former political career against me as we go forward. I hope it hasn't swayed my views on things too much, or not too many people think I'm part of the swamp problem in Tennessee or Hamilton County.
Yeah. Well, you've been out for a while, so enjoying family time and working and everything else like normal people. So
yeah, and out long enough to start gaining some of my common sense back.
yeah. Yeah, I hear you. So all right. So what the reason why I have you on and let everyone else know, I want to go over some of these post-election numbers, especially with the Tennessee governor's race here, and compare it to some of the other ones. And I started seeing a lot of people say, well, our governor, he got reelected by a wider majority, a larger percentage and everything, and nothing's going to change with all the things that he did. Basically, govern like a Democrat, and most people would say, but being reelected the way he was, and a lot of people are upset about how he governed during this shutdown and stuff. And he basically made 10 promises when his first campaign, and only really delivered on 2. So with that being said, I looked at the number. In 2018, he won his race by 59.6% of the vote. And so in 2022, he increased it by 64% of the vote. Okay. So, people was like, well, nobody's going to ever learn. And, it's just the same old, until I looked at it and started breaking down the numbers. And so when I looked at the numbers for Bill Lee, and his Democratic opponent was Carl Dean, I think that's correct, in 2018, he got 1,336,106 votes in 2018, and Carl Dean got 864,863 votes. So, I wanted to look at and see, well, what did he get in 2022? So when I looked at 2022 versus his 2018 totals, it went down. In 2022, this year, he got 1,128,097 votes. So he got a little over 200,000 less votes.
Yeah, it seems like it dropped by 15 to 20%.
Yeah. So, but even though his percentage of win went up, his total number of votes went down. Well, and you think, well, he had a Democratic opponent. This is the year of democracy's on the ballot, and the abortion issue and all this and that, which we know Tennessee took care of that back several years ago. So I looked at the numbers for the Democrats, and as I said, so in 18 they got 864,000. This time 572,000 votes. So 292,000, almost 293,000 less votes for the Democrats. So, and for the total number of votes in the governor's race in 2018, here in the state of Tennessee, it was 2,243,000 votes. In this year, 2022, 1,737,000 votes. A lot less voter turnout in versus 18 to 22. Now we know, as we kind of discussed a little bit yesterday, there was a senator on the ballot in 2018, if I'm correct. I believe I am. Might have been Marsha Blackburn, who was running for Senate seat. But I mean, we had in from 2018 to 22, 505,000 less votes total in the governor's race in Tennessee. And to me, that was kind of mind blowing. I'm like, with all this went on, how did our vote totals go down?
Well, I'll tell you one of the things that's interesting, because you'd mentioned in 2018, Governor Lee ran against Carl Dean. Carl Dean was a known Democrat. He had name recognition. He was the mayor of Davidson County, Nashville, prior to running for governor. He'd been around in political circles even before then. But, you know, even though it just passed, I can't tell you who the Democrat candidate was this year.
Yeah, it was a doctor out of Nashville, as I understand it, Dr. Martin, and don't even remember his first name, but, you know.
To my point. And
yeah,
so,
yeah,
so it's expected when you have a known candidate versus an unknown candidate, I guess, for vote totals to drop on the Democrat side. They didn't know who he was. Why was he going to get out there? And if you have no name recognition or no one knows who you are, why would anyone in the middle? Why would any independents vote for you? So his vote total should be expected to drop. But then I think, to the point that you're trying to make, by this point, Governor Bill Lee is a known entity. He was unknown 4 years ago, yet still won. But today he's known.
Yeah.
Most people know how he's going to govern, what they can expect from Governor Bill Lee, and why was the excitement not there to turn out in the same numbers for him this year that was 4 years ago.
Right. So for me, that, you know, I looked at those numbers and I thought, I think there's more to it than that. You know, yeah, Bill Lee was unknown 2018. You know, he come out of nowhere. You know, he basically had no political experience and stuff, and yet he was able to get that amount of votes through a primary process, and it was a pretty good primary process. It had some well-known names in the Republican primary, you know, and Carl Dean, you know, so those votes were there. And then I look at this, and after all that we've been through and all the political crap that we've heard over the last 6 years, 505,000 less votes in the state in the governor's race. Now, as I said, you know, it's a non-presidential year, and both of those were comparing apples to apples. You know, 18 was a non-presidential election year, and 2022 was. So I just wanted to break it down for our congresswoman here in East Tennessee, Diane Harshbarger. So in 2020, when she first ran in a presidential cycle, she got 74.7% of the vote versus the Democrat. She got 228,000 votes. The Democrat got 68,000, almost 68,617 votes. So if we look at 2022, she had 74% of the vote in 2020, She got 78.3% of the vote in 2022. But her vote totals went down because it's a non-presidential year. The way I'm looking at it, her vote totals dropped by 81,000 votes, and the Democrats dropped off by 31,000 votes. But she got 147,000 votes, and the Democrat got 37,000. It's a huge drop
Mhm.
in a 2-year period versus a non-presidential cycle. And so for a total of 112,000, over 112,000 less votes in this cycle for the first congressional district. But so when I'm looking at these numbers, and I'm kind of not normal. I'm kind of a political nerd when it comes to stuff like this. So I thought, well, let's look at some governors that basically stood up in the COVID years and defended a lot of things going on in their state, defended their constituents against some of the things that was going on. So I pulled up Ron DeSantis. So Ron DeSantis, we all know that has been, other than Trump, has got more media, bad media against him than anyone else in as a governor in the United States. So we know how close his election was in 2018. Okay. So he got 49.6% of the vote in 2018. He brought in a little over 4 million votes, 4,076,000. And his Democrat opponent got 4,043,000. So it was a very close election down there. And so we look at this year, 2022, and he went from 4,076,000 to 4,613,000 votes. So he increased his totals by 537, over 537,000 votes. But the Democrat, and a well-known Democrat that ran against him, was it Charlie Crist?
Charlie Crist.
Yeah. Former governor there, correct? And he resigned his congressional seat to run, correct?
Former governor, former congressman, ran for Senate.
Yeah. Yeah, he got almost 1 million less votes, 938,000 less votes than the Democrat did in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So DeSantis went from 49% of the vote to 59% of the vote. He increased his turnout, his percentage of winning in 4 years by 10%. And this is a guy who took on Disney, probably the largest employer in Florida, had to deal with the don't say gay stuff, the COVID stuff, all the stuff with the schools and everything, got so much negative press. But this was what turned out for him. Now, the vote totals in Florida in 2018 was 8.2 million. Okay. But in 2022, it was 7.7 million. So the total votes actually went down in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that because they had some good election reform there? Who knows? But you also have to take note that they had 2 hurricanes. They had the devastating hurricane, and then they had the one that hit the East Coast just right before Election Day. So who knows? But he was able to increase his vote totals and increase his percentage of winning while the Democrats went down.
Mhm.
To me, that's pretty good. It's interesting versus what we've seen here in Tennessee. You know, and you hear all this stuff, voter apathy, people don't want to get out and vote. Well, maybe if we give them something to vote for,
Mhm.
you know. So I thought, well, let's just don't settle on DeSantis and let's go look at Georgia, because DeSantis actually early into the COVID deal, he did shut some stuff down and then come back and changed his mind on it.
Mhm.
Brian Kemp in Georgia didn't, and actually took some heat from Trump over it, if you remember that.
Mhm.
He
Well,
took-
that started a much bigger rift that came during the
Yeah.
re-election that Kemp and Trump had as well.
yeah, I mean, not only did Kemp take some heat from Trump over the not shutting down for the COVID stuff, keeping the state open, it was all the stuff about voter fraud and the Senate
Yeah,
election
stuff.
stuff down there. So a lot of negative publicity in his state and nationwide at that point from the heat that he took from Trump and stuff. So in 2018, he won his election 50. He had 50.2%. It was a close race. He had 1,978,000 votes. Stacey Abrams got 48.8% of the vote. She had 1,923,000 votes for a total of a little over 3.9 million votes for 2018. So very close race. Then all the things happen with COVID and all the stuff that I named. We fast forward to 2020. In 2022, he gets 53.4% of the vote. He increases his vote total. He goes from 1.9 million to 2.1 million. He increases his vote total by 131,920 votes, almost 132,000 votes. Stacey Abrams, the same candidate that he ran against in 2018, her vote total drops. She goes from 48.8% of the vote to 45.9% of the vote. She gets 1.8 million votes. Her vote total drops 112,000, a little over 112,000 votes. So the total votes in let's see, in 2018 was 3.9, 3,939,000 votes. In 2022, it increased to a little over 10,000 more votes. It was 3,949,000 votes. So although the vote total only increased turnout in 2022 by 10,000 votes, he increased his lead, his voter turnout, his votes by 131,000, almost 132,000 votes versus Stacey Abrams, the same opponent. And, you know, we've seen how the Democrats have tried to use her and everything, and you see the results of it.
You know, and you did bring up some interesting numbers. And before we get too deep into the woods, I think it's important to remember, and I say it this way to when college classes or high school students, when I would speak to them, you take 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen atom and combine them, you get water, and you get it every time. It's consistent. That's science. Politics is a social science. If 1.8 million people voted in Tennessee, there are 1.8 million people, different reasons why someone voted the way they voted and what was on their mind when they stepped into the voting booth. If we could boil it down to an exact science every single time, Hillary Clinton wouldn't have spent $1 billion to lose in 2016.
Right.
You know, it's a so as we game plan this, and we try to figure it out, I think there are a lot of things that were on the ballot, a lot of ways people have acted since COVID, a lot of things that ways people have governed their state that can point to trends, but who knows? I mean, there was Georgia, for example, when Kemp's numbers went up, we know that there was a contentious Senate race on the ballot this time. And so that pulled a lot of people out to vote for the Senate race. But overall, what I've noticed with the governors and the folks that you're pointing out is something that we've known for a long time. Real conservatives have known for a long time. Stand up for your values, and the people will follow you. People will vote for you, and people will support you. It doesn't even have to. We don't even have to talk about it at the state level. I've been following politics for a very long time, and I remember when we were told that we had to elect someone like McCain to be our presidential candidate because we needed someone electable to win.
Yep.
Did we win?
No.
4 years later, we fell for it again when they said you need Romney as your candidate because you need someone electable who can win. Did we win? But
No.
when Trump was on the ballot, when he was able to capture the nomination, did he win? Yeah. And we also learned that those same Republicans that were telling us that we had to get somebody who was electable that could win, it wasn't because they were trying to win. It was because they were trying to keep radicals off the ballot, because those same ones became anti-Trumpers and were against the very people. You know, when Romney won the election, again, those people who said that we needed an electable candidate and then said, well, we need to come together for the betterment of the party. Did they do it when Trump was the candidate?
No.
No, I don't think so. And so I guess that's a coming to Jesus moment we need to have within the Republican Party if you're talking party politics. But it goes to show that, you know, while the right is being told they have to moderate themselves to win, that's not how it bears out on ballots most of the time.
Right.
Now, the opposite happens with the left. They want the right to govern as moderates and to move to the left in order to be electable. What does the left do? They run as moderates and then govern as leftists.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we get a Joe Biden. That's how we get it. They do it every single time. They have to lie about who they are in order to get elected. And they tell us that we have to lie about who we are to get elected. Well, it works for them. It don't for us.
Right.
People want good conservative values.
Yep. And so, you know, that was what I was looking at. You know, what was the difference here? What made the difference here? And it's a way that people stood up for it, for their conservative values and protecting people's rights, and, you know, not telling the state that you have to shut down your businesses and lose your local business, your hard-earned money that you put into something for 10, 15, 20 years, and go out of business because some governor has become a tyrant and shut you down and stuff. So
yeah, so how you govern matters.
Yes. So I go and I look at South Dakota.
I was about to ask you if you had South Dakota numbers, because I think Kristi Noem was very popular for.
She was. I mean, they actually threw a parade for this lady by the governor's house there. And I remember seeing that, and I was like, man, that's good. I'm glad the people are seeing what she's doing, you know. And so South Dakota in 2018, Noem, you know, it's a very small populated state, you know, but she won by 51% of the vote over a Democrat opponent. She got 172,000 votes, almost 173,000 votes to win the governorship. And the Democrat got 161,000 votes for a total of 339,000 votes. And as I said, this is a small populated state. So in 2022, after she's done the things that she's done and stood up for her people and stood up against even the feds on the things that they were doing, she got 62% of the vote. She increased her percentage win by 11%.
Mhm.
And where she got 172,000, almost 173,000 in 2018, in 2022, she got 217,000 votes, 44,000 more votes in a small state.
Yeah.
Um,
Went
that
up over
she-
20%.
yeah. I mean, more than what she had 4 years before that.
What were the Democrat numbers?
The Democrat numbers, they went from 47.6% down to 35.2. Their total votes at 18 versus 22 went from 161,000 down to 123,000.
Okay. So they lost total number of votes. She went up total number of votes.
Yeah, she went up 44,000 votes. They went down 38,000 votes.
Okay.
And for a total between the 2 years, there was in 2018 339,000 people that voted. It went to 350 for 22 for a total with an increase of almost 11,000 votes in turnout for the governor vote. So here's the conclusion I come to, even though there are a few things in there. If you stand up for the people and you protect their rights and try to take care of them, more people will come out to vote and you will get a larger majority of that vote. It's pretty simple.
In the 3 states that you gave as examples of Florida, Georgia, and South Dakota, it seems obvious that much of the middle ended up moving over to vote Republican in those gubernatorial races. And if you want further proof of that, look at the Senate race in Georgia. How close was that versus what happened in that gubernatorial race? Kemp was known for standing up for certain principles, and it's obvious to me there was crossover voting. So those people in the middle were okay, even though Stacey Abrams does have her following. She's got some name recognition. They took 2 known entities and they went with Kemp because they knew the type of leadership he offered. There was a clear contrast in the 2 candidates, and they knew what he offered. Unlike 4 years prior, remember Stacey Abrams, she ran as a moderate.
Right.
Stacey Abrams did, and Kemp, and they came very close. That election was very close. They know who Kemp is now. Stacey Abrams didn't remain a moderate over the last 4 years. She has come out very vocally for CRT. She was an election denier in her own state, refused to concede. She still hasn't conceded for that race.
Right.
You know, so but when she showed herself to be a liberal and was soaking up all of the attention she would get from MSNBC and CNN, she got herself further and further to the left. Voters abandoned her. Voters that voted for Kemp also voted for Raphael Warnock in that Senate election.
Yep.
Strong leadership will win the middle, and it did in those 3 examples.
Yeah. And what's even there is when you talk about name recognition and stuff that we was talking about in the Tennessee races, there's not hardly much bigger name in Georgia than Herschel Walker, especially with people our age. You know, my age. I'm a little bit older than you, so people my age know what Herschel Walker is. Bill Bates knows who Herschel Walker is. So, but anyway, but even with that name recognition, you know, it was still it's going to be a runoff. But still, Kemp was able to get those votes and get that crossover vote and stuff. And I think it just shows, hey, if you want to win, you want to get reelected, take care of the people, stand up for the people. You know, it's pretty simple. And as I said, the 2 of the governors who've had so much negative press increased their percentage and their voter turnout for them. You know, DeSantis and Kemp.
Yeah, people are smart. If you're living in Florida and you hear all the noise about the don't say gay and the bigotry, that stuff falls. People know better these days, and they're going to research for themselves, especially when it comes to their children in their schools. A lot of people have children in schools, and so they knew exactly what that bill was actually doing, despite all of the rhetoric. But that wasn't. So that backfired on them.
Yeah.
And hopefully it continues to do so as that nonsense rolls forward. I remember similar things happening even in Tennessee, and watching the Tennessee legislature kind of get nervous or want to acquiesce to some of the pressures. Georgia, however, because when they wanted to do voting reform, what happened to Georgia? Rather than backing down to President Biden saying that it was Jim Crow 2.0, rather than changing their mind because the All-Star game was leaving Atlanta, they said, no, this is the right thing to do. We're changing our voting laws. We didn't back down from the pressure. Georgia didn't back down from the pressure. A lot of states do. They think they're going to lose some business or whatever. Well, I'm sorry. I don't think the souls of 7 million Tennesseans should be for sale. I don't think the souls of any Americans should be for sale for, right and wrong.
Right. And the great thing about the All-Star game leaving Atlanta was the Braves turned around and won the World Series. So, yeah.
Yeah,
that was
great.
the good thing about that. The All-Star game gets pulled from Atlanta and Atlanta wins the World Series. That's kind of like, you've heard the old saying, God has a sense of humor. So anyway, but
it's a Kerry Lake in Arizona. I don't know if you've seen that clip on YouTube when one of the reporters asked her, because the Super Bowl is going to be in Arizona, but they asked her if she's worried that her being an ultra conservative is going to cause the NFL to want to move the Super Bowl because of her stance on certain issues. And she had a perfect answer for them. She says, if the NFL wants to side with against me in trying to stop fentanyl coming through the border, then people need to see that that's the NFL stand.
Yeah, I've seen that clip, and she's correct. Folks, switching back to Tennessee now, some people will look at this and say, well, Bill Lee, he didn't stand up for the teachers when it come from Larry Arnn from Hillsdale College. That's the teacher turnout. No, it's not. May have had a little bit to do with it, but I know some people who had said, hey, my wife's a teacher, and they were still scared to death that a Democrat would win, so they still voted for Bill Lee, even though they can't stand him. So the deal with the teacher comments from the president of Hillsdale College, it may have cost him a few votes because he didn't come out and snuggle up with the teachers union and all this and that. But
he wouldn't have the teachers union support and vote anyway, right?
Right.
They're always looking for the drama to prove their point, the teachers union. And I know a lot of teachers, and also know a lot of teachers that are in the union because they think that there's a benefit to them, that are still very conservative and very Republican. And the big lie that the teachers union tries to put out there is that somehow or another, the rise of private schools, additional charter schools, will somehow hurt the teaching profession and will somehow hurt the education system. Most teachers that I know understand that if more schools are open out there, especially since those schools also try to correct things like the teacher-student ratio in the classrooms, there will be more need for teachers, not less, more demand for teachers, because now you have more schools operating, and now you also have lower student class. You're not going to change the number of children that need education, but you are going to change those class size ratios, which means you need more teachers. And when teachers are in greater demand, guess what happens? You start to all of a sudden get more money for teachers. because you're trying to hire them either from one school to the other,
Right.
but also because you no longer, as a teacher, have to limit yourself to, okay, well, what's the government going to pay me to do this job? You can now shop around your choices. And when you can shop around your choices, you're going to find the fit that's best for you,
Right.
be it the benefits that the state might offer, or be it the extra cash in your paycheck that you might get from one of the private schools.
Yep.
And a lot of teachers don't do it for money either. A lot of teachers find their work very spiritual in what they do, and so they may want to go teach in a classroom where they're allowed to, or where they're not forced, rather, to force some values down children's throats that they themselves don't even agree with. So, yeah, the teachers unions love to say that competition in education is bad, but a lot of teachers I know quite the opposite.
Yeah.
So he was just a target because of what he represented more than anything.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I agree with the comments. I don't even remember what he said, but
Well, he basically said that that most of the colleges, universities, are the education department is the worst of the worst departments at universities, and the teachers are the products of that.
Oh.
And you know, there was somebody in the audience that recorded it. It's not exactly what he said, but it's the same. That was the meaning. Okay. The university education departments, college education departments, for the most part of these universities and colleges, those people going into education, learning, getting a degree from those departments are usually,
well, if they're trained up a certain way, they're going to act a certain way.
right.
You know, I can go to a grocery store, and when I watch the kid put my eggs in the bag and then throw a bunch of canned goods on top of it, I can't assume that he was ever trained not to do that.
Right.
He probably wasn't trained to do that. So, yeah.
Exactly. So, and when Arn was heard saying that, he was sitting there in front of Bill Lee at the meeting conference that they were doing. It became the big problem because Bill Lee didn't come out and say that's not true. I disagree with that. And, how teachers union uses the issue to, attack things. But that wasn't it. Back to the original point, that wasn't
Sorry.
hurt. I mean, no, you're good. That wasn't what hurt Bill Lee's numbers in this. It's because the things that he did to the state and allowed cities like Nashville and Memphis to do the things that they did and shut down businesses and let tyrant mayors do what they did in Nashville and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. That's what hurt Bill Lee. So, I just think the numbers they speak for themselves, and you can look and see. My point of this thing, if you want, as I said before, if you want to increase your chances of getting reelected, stand up, do the things that you said you was going to do, support the people, protect their rights, and your odds of getting reelected go up. And I believe the numbers show that, even though Bill Lee got reelected anyway, but he really didn't have a good challenger.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
even with at its core, Tennessee is still very, very conservative state, a very Republican state. Doesn't mean it'll always be the case, but it is right now.
You said that right. It's a Republican state. I wouldn't swear up and down it's so conservative.
Yeah, we do have a lot of moderate Republicans, and that's how they are or why they are. But Tennessee's always kind of been like that too. I think it's kind of a little bit. Let's see what other states do, and then we'll follow.
We're not too far removed from a two-term Democrat governor.
That's right.
And I would argue with you that two-term Democrat governor, when it comes to financial stuff, fiscal responsibility was probably better than some of the latest Republicans we've had.
Mhm.
That's not a popular opinion, but you know, he did address the TennCare issues and stuff. You know, that's hard for a lot of people to swallow, but you know, I'm not endorsing candidate parties or anything here, but yeah, you know,
Yeah.
as I said, we're not too far removed from Bill Bredesen being a two-term governor.
I'm a gun guy,
Yep.
and I carried in my first term. Yeah, it was in my first term. I carried a bill that said, "Wait a minute, states and counties," because it was up to states and counties to figure out if you can carry a firearm. If you got a carry permit, they're saying you can't carry in this park. Well, that's an open public place. Even President Obama signed a bill into law saying that you could carry in national parks for your protection if you've got a permit in that state. And so I carried a bill, and of course oh no, you can't put, what about the kids on the slide? And what if the gun goes off? And all the what ifs that they always try to do. And the following year, the NRA got behind it and it passed. That same effort that you can't restrict firearms, legally carried people from carrying in public places like that, a park. It's not like it's a sensitive area. And I feel vindicated because last year the Supreme Court agreed with me and said, no, you can't restrict the carrying of firearms. That Second Amendment applies to outside of your home as well.
Right, right.
And so unless you're in a protected sensitive area, you can't restrict firearms there. It's issues of daylight savings time just passed. When Arizona and some of these other states back years, Indiana was one of them, and then they decided to start observing it. They said, well, we're not going to do daylight savings time. They just don't. What does Tennessee do when they decided they wanted to stay on daylight savings time year round? They passed a bill that said, well, if the federal government allows us,
Mm-hmm.
And what a way to punt. I mean, that's a way to stand up for your people, but not actually stand up and do anything. So you can hide behind it's not us, it's the federal government that's keeping us from doing it.
Instead of saying, as some of my previous videos, talking about the powers of state powers, is
Right.
we have the power to make that decision. The federal government doesn't. We're going to do this, and if they don't like it, they can get over it.
Mhm.
And stand up for the people. That would be
just do it. Is the federal government going to say no? Then justify how Arizona doesn't.
Right, exactly.
There's the interstate commerce clause. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Just do it.
All right. Well, we've got going here, so let's bring this thing to an end. I think we covered what we wanted to do here. So, but we make some very valid points and standing up for the people and doing the things that we want to instead of punting and pushing everything, hiding behind the feds and blaming everything on them. Stand up for your people. Represent your people that you asked to vote for you, and it'll benefit everybody. So with that, Tillman, I thank you. You got any closing comments that you want to mention?
No, I want to thank you for having me on again. You've known me for a long time. We've been friends for a very long time, and I've got an opinion about everything. So if ever, you want to bring up another topic or anytime you want to have me back, I'm welcome. I'm happy to do this, and appreciate your friendship.
Yep, you're welcome. And the same thing. You've been a good friend over the years and everything. And so I appreciate you coming on, discussing with me. I know that you look a lot of this stuff, not as much as you used to. You're trying to get away from it, but it's always interesting to talk to you about this stuff. So anyway, all right. So share the video. As I said before, follow me on Facebook at Charles Cook, at my Charles Cook page, YouTube and Rumble at Charles Cook 52. Like and subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified when I upload a video. And until the next video, thank you. God bless you and have a great day.